the left and back to the right. Don't you know the UT is out of sight?
Hi, I'm going to talk about my experience as an artist from the beginning. I was a little girl, like 2 years old, and I remember singing everything that came on the radio, note for note, word for word. I loved to sing. My mom and dad, they were singers. They sang at church. My dad had a deep baritone voice, and I just loved that smooth sound he made. My mom was a first soprano, and she could hit high. She had a beautiful range, and there was always music in the house. Just the joy of music every day. And back in the day, I think around 5, no, I was almost 5. The church was having a contest for children, and I was entered into the contest, and I sang this song, Yes, Jesus Loves Me. And I remember that day so vividly. I sang that song, and I remember the nodding of the heads from the sisters of the church, them saying amen. I even heard one of them say, that little gal sure can sing. And I remember shimmering lights over my head, an energy of some kind. I don't know what it was, but something of lights, were dancing on top of my head while I was singing that song, Yes, Jesus Loves Me. And from that day forward, I knew I wanted to sing. And I think my mom recognized it, and she started promoting and helping and doing everything she could. I joined every glee club when I was in school, in elementary, and participated in chorus. And we had plays or anything, functions like that. My mother, she always, she was the one who nurtured it, nurtured it all, and made my little costumes, and she got me lessons. I never had voice lessons, but I had music lessons. I learned how to play piano. I learned how to read music. I just love music so much. I was so enamored. There was nothing else for me. So I went on as I continued to elementary school. This professor of music, when I was around like 9 years old, he saw that I could pick up any instrument and play it without ever touching it in my life, and play it and make sense of it. So he got a scholarship for me to attend USC to further study, and I went to USC. At that time, I have to say that it was pretty racist. And so they just put me in a big old room filled with pianos. I'd say it was like 50 pianos in that room. And they just sat me down at one of them. And no one ever came back to attend to me in any kind of way, shape, or form. And I went 2 days in a row, and the same thing happened. So I told my mom, they're not helping me over there. I don't know anything. I haven't been shown anything. Nobody is assisting me in any way. And I would prefer to be over playing and doing music in the park. I used to go to South Park, and Barry White was my playmate. We together used to hang out because Miss Lena Horne lived on Park Front Walk at that time. Those were some big old beautiful troubadour homes over there, and she happened to live in one. And Barry and I used to hang around at her house out front listening to her singing and practicing and stuff. I think she was a part of our influence, both him and I, as well as other influences. But this was the time when I was involved, like I said, in most activities. I was a sport tumbler, a swim team. We had beautiful underwater ballets and all kinds of things. I loved everything about entertainment and just being involved in music any way I could, in playing instruments. So I would just say I was born to do music. And I think when I look on this, I used to do music with my brother at home. He played guitar. My dad got him a guitar at 11, and he was learning how to play, and he could play the blues, and I would play the keyboards, and we'd make up songs and stuff. You know, we'd always make up some old crazy song or something and be singing it and having fun with it. We didn't have any recording equipment at the time, so we would just have to memorize stuff that we did, and we did, you know. I can't remember it today, but yesterday we would do something like that, and it was always a lot of fun. Like I said, we always had plenty of music going on in our house. I remember when I was around 6 or 7 years old, we lived a few doors away from Miss Etta James. Well, actually, it was a home, I believe Richard Berry might have lived there, but they would be together all the time, practicing and writing songs, and we could hear them, you know, doing music. And she used to let me and my little friend sit on the porch. She would say, "Long as you be quiet." She wasn't no more than about 14 or 15 years old at that time, young Etta James. But she became my mentor. She allowed me to sit there, and I would hear them. They did a couple of songs that I remember. One of them was called "Roll With Me, Henry." And then they had another one called "Annie Had a Baby." And of course, Richard Berry himself, he did a couple of hit records. One of them was called "Louie Louie." I don't think he got the credit he deserved for it, because there was another English group or someone that took over, and they made more of a hit out of it than he did. And then he had the flip side was called "Pretty Girls," which we used to love that song. Everywhere I go, there's a pretty girl there. Oh yeah, that was it. That was the song right there back in the day. But anyway, I had the blessing to be around this legendary icon when I was a kid. I had no idea the influence that she had on me. And when I was about, I think 14, 15 years old, she gifted me with that album with all those hits on it. That At Last album, I mean, they dumped all of every last thing on there, and every one of them was a great song. Every tune was great. And I used to put that album on the weekends. Put my headscarf. I had a beautiful red headscarf, and I drape it over the lamp and make my room cozy. And I had my own stereo in my room, and I would put that album on and just play it repeatedly. I never took it off. I just played it. When it finished playing one side, I'd flip it over and listen to the other side and flip it back. But that's all I did, was listen to Etta James. And I didn't know that I was learning at the same time, because they tell me today, you remind me of Etta James. Your phrasing. And I guess that's why. Because I was listening to her. I loved her. And I always do her material today out of love, respect, and honor that she deserves. She was great.
Something deep down in my soul said, go ahead on and ride. When I saw you and that same girl walking, well, I'm ready for mine. Let me see you walk away from me. I said I'd rather be a blind girl, baby, than to see you walk away from me. I was just thinking about your sweet kiss and your warm embrace. The reflection in the glass showed tears streaming down your face. When I think about you, baby, I said I'd rather be a blind girl than to see you walk away from me. Said I'd rather be a blind girl than to see you walk away from me.
When I was age 15 years old, my dad, he was a guitar player, and he had all the best well-known guitar players, bluesmen coming to our house. People like Pee Wee Creighton, T-Bone Walker, Lowell Folsom. He even had little young Johnny Guitar Watson coming. Johnny took me under his wing, and he thought that I had a wonderful voice, and he always encouraged me to sing, keep on singing. He schooled me about not singing like anybody except myself. He told me that I had to own the song. So I learned that, and it stayed with me all my rest of my life. But he took me when I was like 15 years old on my very first blues gig. It was at a place out in Paris, California, and it was called Johnson's Ranch. This place was where all African American people would go to party. It was like a big redwood looking barn, and like I almost want to say with hay on the floor, but no. But anyway, it was a real big kind of a place, and I went out there with Johnny, and I sang an Aretha Franklin song. I love that song that she had out. Her first song that she recorded that I can remember was Yesterday I sang a love song, but today I'm singing the blues. I love that song. I used to get right with Aretha and sing the stew out of it with her. But anyway, Johnny took me out there to sing that song, and when I got done singing it, I was hearing people applauding and hooping and hollering for me, and I heard one lady say, that gal sure can sing. And he was proud of me, and he continued to nurture me and guide me and be my mentor and play guitar, when he had time, we would go through stuff. But he was he liked to make up songs and stuff. And when I met him, I also met Larry Williams, who was his best friend. They were always creating some kind of song up. I remember one song even that Larry Williams recorded, and I know Johnny was involved in it. I don't know if he got credit for it, but it was called Boney Maroney. I got a girl named Boney Maroney. She's as skinny as a piece of macaroni. That's enough. But anyway, Larry Williams recorded that song. And Johnny was a hell of a musician. He could play everything. Keyboards, horn, guitar, and then he could sing. And I admired him so much. I looked at him like he was my big papa. He wasn't that, I don't think he was that much older than I, but he was a mature young man who was responsible and took responsibility for me. And my parents, my dad and my mom, felt secure in letting me go to go out to sing whenever he wanted to take me to display my talent. I will never forget my big papa, Mr. Johnny Guitar Watson, and what he did for me musically. I think that he launched me into realizing what professionalism meant. And I've always tried to have that standard about myself. Also, he is to be remembered. His music was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. And whenever I go out to sing the blues, I will always do Ta-Ta Ya Baby. That's one of my favorites that he did. I had a lot of favorites, but that one right there stands out above the rest. It was so, it's such a composition. He did the changes in that song all by itself, just takes you on such a journey. When you listen to it, you see what I mean. Hats off to Johnny Guitar Watson. Rest in power, brother. My best friend, Willie Hutch, rest in peace. He joined a recording label called Soul City Records, headed up by Mr. Mark Gordon, who had left Motown to come out west to set up a West Coast Motown sound. He partnered with secret agent man, Mr. Johnny Rivers. They were under the Liberty record label subsidiary with Joe Saraceno as the head man in charge on that. But anyway, Willie came to my house to recruit me, because they wanted someone who could sing on the order of a Martha and the Vandellas. Willie had written a song called I'm Moanin', and they wanted to put me on that song. So I became a member of the Soul City family record label, which also had the wonderful, legendary Fifth Dimensions. They also had Johnny Rivers, as I said, secret agent man. Had this group, a male group, it was like the Temptations, called the Marvellos. And also, as I said, Willie Hutch himself. And myself, Rose Brooks was the name I went by. And so you can look up that song, I'm Moanin'. I'm Moanin' is a very good song. That was when I had range. I sang with 5 octaves. And it was a hit song. It was right in keeping with the Motown sound. However, there was a song that came out, a novelty called They're Coming to Take Me Away, Ha Ha. They wanted an R&B version of it, so they put me on it. I resented that. I'm a singer. That song was humiliating to me. I did not want to do it, period. But I ended up doing it. They flipped my song from I'm Moanin' to They're Coming to Take Me Away. It did real good for the weeks that it was on the market. But then they banned it because they said it was detrimental to people with mental problems. They're coming to take me away, haha, to the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time. And I'll be happy to see those nice young men in those clean white coats. They're coming to take me away, haha. Yeah, I would ban it too. So yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't want any parts of it, but I recorded that song too, and you can find it in the archives, I believe. You can also find I'm Moanin', in which, like I said, I had range that was equal to Mariah Carey, Michael Jackson, and Minnie Riperton. That was back in the day. I wish now that I could, you know. I'm more of a storyteller and a painter, artist of song than a singer as I used to be. And I used to have another friend that used to come to my house. My brother introduced us. His name was Willie Hutch. Y'all remember him? He's also a legend and icon. I was blessed to have many of those type of friends and people in my life. But anyway, my brother introduced Willie to me, and Willie used to bring his acoustic guitar over, and we would make up songs just have a ball, just doing music. So that was a friendship that carried over into something I'll tell you about in a moment. In the meantime, I was involved in a all-girl group, 5 of us, called the Ribbons. And we had 3 chart hits out. Ain't Gonna Kiss You No More, After Last Night, and My Mama Said. And I wasn't the original vocalist on those songs. The young lady that was the singer for those songs, she passed away. She was like 21 or 22 years old and died of a heart attack. And so I took her place as the lead singer. There were 2 of us that went to the audition. The other young lady's name was Patricia Patridge, and she was in the group. The lady who was the leader of the group, her name was Evelyn Doty. Evelyn, she was the commander, okay? To a degree that you felt kind of like you didn't want that much control of yourself, of someone else being in that much control of you. We did some things. We stayed with Evelyn for about 6 months, I think. We joined in June, and then we did lots of gigs. We were all out in the valley at this place called the Lazy X and Palomino Club, and we was on Sunset, at various places like Sea Rose and the Red Velvet, I think, and the Purple Onion, and these places that were in existence back in the day in Hollywood and Sunset. And we performed at many of those places. We had, like I said, 3 chart hits, and we performed those in addition to some of the covers that we used to do. And I can remember one of them that they used to love to hear me singing. It was by Jackie Wilson, called Dogging Me Around. Y'all remember that goodie? I do. It was one of the best songs that he sang, and we loved it and loved it. And the people loved it too, because every time I sing it, they want me to sing it again. And anyway, like I was saying, we couldn't take any more of her being like she was, so domineering over us. So me and Pat, we decided to flee the scene, as they say. And we were going to get out from under her and become a duo. That's what we got started going on. Met some folks out in the person who was in the recording business. I would say, who was his name, like Gary Goldstein or one of them guys. Anyway, they took us in the studio and we recorded a song called Big City Guy. That was me and Pat on that. And we were spreading our wings a little bit as a duo. So around when it was New Year's, also I must say at that time we had met a gentleman by the name of Arthur Lee. And Arthur Lee had his own group, and he was making headway around a little bit, trying to get something off the ground. He was into the Beatles sound. You know, he was into the Yardbirds and like Mr. Tambourine Man and that type of folky type of material. But he was our friend, and he played at a couple of places, and we attended to support, and he was our friend. But on New Year's Eve, the last day of the year, 1963, Patricia and I wanted to go out and bring in the new year. And we went to the place where we frequented called the California Club. It was very popular, a lot of great acts, I mean top of the line, legendary acts appeared at that place. No cover. Just go in and see them for free. Great artists. This evening we went, and Ike and Tina Turner and their 28-man review were performing. So Pat and I, we was up front sitting. Ike and Tina Turner's band was playing, and Tina and the Ikeettes, they was rocking it, you know, slinging their hair, and had these, you know, those dresses we used to wear with the fringe. They had on them fringe dresses, and they was just going to town with that fringe and the hair movement and the body movement, and I mean, they was just, you know, energy, nothing but pure energy and fun. And just lively, I mean, inspiring as well. You know, that's how it was back in the day. And while I'm sitting there watching the show, I had this real powerful command or demand of something telling me to turn around. Something strong was telling me to turn around. Well, I turned around, and my eyes and his eyes met. And we stared at each other and just continued like we were frozen in time. We locked up, as they say. And we must have stared at each other for so long until I got embarrassed, and I turned back around and started watching the show again. But not after thinking, wow, he is so handsome. And so I wiped him out of my mind, you know, just kind of like went on about my business and started watching the show again. And after a time, I had to go to the ladies' lounge and got up. When I stood up, he stood up. And as I walked towards that way, because he was right in the booth up against the wall, right where the exit is. So when I got close enough to him, he reached out and grabbed my hand. And he told me he wanted to have me come back and sit with him. So I promised that I would. So I did. I came back, and he got out of the seat and ushered me in, and then he sat next to me. And then he called the waitress over to order a drink for me. And I sat next to him. I was very comfortable. I felt like I had known him all my life. I felt like, what a pleasant thing it was. You know, all I can think about was how nice and pleasant that experience was. And while we sat there, he told me his name was Jimmy, And then he told me his name was James Marshall. And I like James Marshall, so that's what I choose to call him. I call him James Marshall. I call him every now and then, I call him Jimmy, but James Marshall is how I see him and think of him. Anyway, James Marshall and I sat there and just had our drink, and he flagged down the cameraman that took pictures and had one of us made. And so we had decided that we were going to leave after the show and go and have a bite to eat. So I didn't even know he was with anyone, and he didn't know I was with anyone. But anyway, just about near the end of the show, my friend Patrick, she joined us at the table, and so did his friend, who also was in the Little Richard band with him. As a matter of fact, Little Richard and their ensemble, which was also like a 27-man review, were there for the Christmas holidays. They played there then, that night. I didn't go then, but that's when Jimmy and Glenn played at that club. Anyway, Glenn came on over, and we all was like a foursome then. So we walked out of the club. My car was parked right across the street under a tree. It was a 59 misty blue Impala with a white rag top. And I remember as we headed across the street to go get in the car, he said, "Nice car." Just like that. And so we got in it and we headed toward Sunset. We went down La Brea, got on La Brea, and then headed all the way to Sunset. And we stopped at this big restaurant called Tiny Nailers. Something on the same order as a Denny's or Norm's restaurant. It was in that particular style. Had the red booths inside, big bay windows where you could look out on the streets and see all the people moving around, the buzz and the traffic and everything. So we sat there and laughed and joked and ordered our food. We had burgers and fries and coffee. And subjects was being thrown around about them playing with Little Richard, and they made jokes about him. I won't tell you all of that, but they were having fun at Richard's expense for sure. So it had been decided that I was going to spend the evening with Jimmy at his place. We drove to the Wilcox Hotel where he was put up. Little Richard did put all his guys up, and when his band members and everybody. So that's where Jimmy was staying, at the Wilcox. I remember us pulling up in front of it, and I gave my friend Patricia the keys to the car. Glenn got up in the front seat with her, and they drove on off into the sunset. We walked on into the hotel in the lobby and went to his room. Room was very nice, very comfortable. He had a sofa in there and a wash basin and bed, and it was nice. It was a nice big old roomy room. So we sat there and talked some, and he picked his guitar up and started playing a few things, and I didn't even know he was a musician, until after we got together and we're at the restaurant. Actually, while I was sitting there in the booth with him, in the club, nothing came up on being a musician, you know. So I want to say for all those people out there that thought it was some kind of groupie thing, it wasn't. You know, I didn't see him on stage and, uh, you know, had to have him or nothing like that. You know, that's not what happened. He saw me and he chose me. And he made the right choice. All right, well, there's another story I can share with you about my second recording. You know, the first one was with Jimmy, the My Diary song, which was born on New Year's Day at the Wilcox Hotel. After a night of passion, Jimmy picked up his guitar. He walked over to the sofa and it was propped up against, leaned up against the sofa. He picked it up and he started playing this real pretty melodies. Sounded like some Curtis Mayfield. And when I asked him what was it, you know, because I thought maybe it was something a new song or something. I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Oh, just some love notes." And so he said, "I know that I will never love again. I know that I will be my only friend." That's what he said while he was playing the music. And then I said, "But if I could, I'd like for you to see the love-sicken image I turned out to be." That was us. That morning. It was around noon, actually. But the song was born right then and there. That was our baby. And for those out there who are confused as to who wrote our song, I'll say it again. Arthur Lee would have had to been a fly on the wall to write that song. He had no parts in it. I only invited him when the session was about to begin. I asked him to do background vocals. And that was his total involvement. My mistake was giving him a copy of the recording. Because he did wonders with that record. Somebody created a bogus label and put his name on it, that he was the writer. And it really made me sad. It made me sick that here we are, you grave robin, you, a black man, robbing another black man for something you didn't have anything to do with other than singing background and helping the background vocalist do the parts that was background. It broke my heart. It made me angry. I had to tell somebody because I didn't even know. My daughter, Yvonne, God rest her soul, I just lost my baby last year at 2016 on September the 6th. So September is a real heavy month for me because not only did she pass in September, my mom passed on September the 13th, 2011. And Jimmy, of course, passed on September the 18th, 1970. It's a hard month, I tell you. Harder, getting harder, and gotten harder. anyhow, I wrote the song with Jimmy, and I was, like I said, devastated and angry by him claiming to have written our song. And I never was in the Jimmy world up until then, in 1991, when I discovered. And my daughter brought home a book. She was at this Esselwan bookstore, and she was looking at a book by David Henderson called Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky. And the guy that worked at the store asked her, what you know about Jimi Hendrix? And she said, oh, I know Jimi Hendrix. My mom and him were an item, and he was like my dad. And he said, what's your mom's name? And she told him my name, and he went to the glossary or whatever and looked it up. And there were 2 pages in the Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky book that talked about me. And it said that Arthur Lee was dealing with this chick named Rosa Lee Brooks. And he also called me Rosa Parks in that book. But anyway, he claimed to have took me in the studio, had a song, and he heard about this bad cat in town, and that would be Jimi Hendrix. All lies. And he was claiming to have produced the song and everything. He was 18 years old, had no money and no means, and would not have been able to do anything of the sort. He wasn't involved. So my daughter brought this book home, and it had this information in it, and I had to correct that. So I got in touch with a gentleman in Novato, California, who ran a fanzine called Straight Ahead. That was my entrance into the Jimmy world in 1991, I think, maybe 92. That I wanted to get my story out there. So he did my very first interview, Steve Roby, with the Straight Ahead newsletter. And Juma Sultan was one of the technical directors on that magazine at the time, and I became a technical consultant on there. And I actually did like 3 of his fanzines, including that first interview that I did, but I wrote some other things in there, and a couple of more afterwards. But I was able to get my story told in that sense. And little by little, over time, people have begun to know the truth. And that's all I want. You know, I just want people to know the truth. I'm standing in the back of the California Club now. This is where all the buses used to pull in the back lot and unload the equipment and the people and the instruments, cases of drums, and whatever they needed to put together for a show, whether it be keyboards, you name it. They had it on that bus, brought it here so that they could put on a spectacular show. We're right here at the California Club. This brings back so many wonderful, wonderful memories. I spent a lot of time here. They had some of the best artists of all time. I mentioned Ike and Tina Turner. Etta James was here. Johnny Guitar Watson was here. The Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band was here. They called them the Ken folks then. And they always had top-of-the-line artists right here, where black folks used to come to be entertained. You see that tree over there? That's the tree that I parked my car under when we got here to the party on New Year's Eve. Right under that big tree that used to be the size of the one next to it when I parked it there that time in 1963 New Year's Eve. I attended school right here in Los Angeles. John Muir Junior High was on like 57th in Vermont. And I was in every glee club, chorus, choir that was anything to do with music. I was involved. And I recall some of the other young ladies that were attending school with me at the time that went on to become very world famous. Miss Darlene Love was one of them. She had both groups, the Blossoms and the Honeycomb. And then Miss Carolyn Willis, who was a pianist as well as a singer, beautiful voice. And I remember her going on to sing with my favorite duo, Seals and Croft. She did this song, Closer to You. Darling, if you want me to be closer to you, get closer to me. And she had a vocal solo in there that was so beautiful. One of my favorite parts of the song. I get goosebumps just even thinking about it. She was a wonderful artist. There were so many artists. I mean, to think about it, even with the Chambers Brothers. And we all went to the same schools, John Muir Junior High, and then also in high school was Manual Arts. And I remember the Chambers. They remember me better than I remember them, though. But there was another duo, brothers. There was like 4 of them, I believe. And they went on to become world famous and rocking harder than I don't know what, with Time Has Come Today. And over the years I had the blessing to meet them. How it happened was I was on MySpace. Had a friend on there named Louis Matoyer. He's out of, what do you call that place? Where Buddy Miles came from.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Nebraska, yeah, Louis Matoyer. His father was famous for their barbecue they had back there, Matoyers. But anyway, Louis and I were friends on MySpace. And I had a gig at the Whiskey A Go-Go on, I guess it was around November, we were doing a tribute to Jimmy, of course. I do lots of Jimi Hendrix birthday tributes and memorials. So I was doing a tribute. I invited Louis to come, and he told me that he would bring Willie Chambers with him, and I would have a chance to meet him too. And as it turned out, he brought Willie, and we had the show, and afterwards took pictures together and hanged out together a little bit and everything. They were playing at this place called the Kibitz Room, which is inside Cantor's over on Fairfax at 3rd. That was the happening spot. And I used to go there hanging out with them, and they'd always call me up to do a couple of numbers. I always enjoyed going over and hanging out with those guys, and Maria, Guadalupe Maria, and her sister Adelina. They're both very talented ladies that sing very well. Met some wonderful people, and then I turned out to meet Joe Chambers, the other brother. How that happened was a good friend of mine. He's a drummer, a singer. His name is Aromas. Aromas was in contact with Joe Chambers, and he told me that they were hanging out together and he was going to bring him by to meet me. So he did. And we met, and we had a really good meeting. It was like we'd known each other all our lives, and he was a very nice, humble brother that very talented too. I mean, he could sing, and I invited him because I was always doing something music. I had jams at my house, and so I invited him to come to the jam, and from that point on, we just, whatever I had going on musically, if I was doing a club or doing any type of engagement, I would always invite Joe to come up and do a couple of numbers and hang out with us and stuff. So over the years, I've had a very nice relationship with both Willie Chambers and Joe Chambers. I've never met Lester Chambers and George Chambers. They're all back together except for Lester now. The Chambers brothers are on the rise again. Their song "Time Has Come Today" is doing very well in the marketplace, and they've been doing some wonderful things musically that has put them back in the game. And I'm very proud to know them. I'm very proud of their success, and happy to see, after all these years, of all the brothers coming back together to do music again. Hey, you know what? I've always been a rockin' chick. Early on, I was digging it all. I was always into Rod Stewart, Jeff Beck, Cream, Steppenwolf, the band, what's his name, John Mayall, man, you name them, whoever was bad at the time, I was on it. And my band, I put my first band together in 1966, and that was the type of material that we played. In the white room with black curtains at the station. And I like to dream, riding on my flying machine. That magic clock, close your eyes. Yeah, magic carpet ride. And I was loving the band, Take a Load Off Fanny. And there was some Janis Joplin going on, I think, around in there too. She had a song she did not write, and she is not the first one to record it. Aretha Franklin's sister Carolyn wrote the song and sang it. But everybody gives credit to somebody else. Is not true. It was called Piece of My Heart. Janet didn't write it, and she wasn't the first one to record it. I remember who did it. That was Carolyn Franklin. But the Beatles, man, wow, when they hit in 1964, that was right at the right before Jimmy left out of here to return with Little Richard to go on tour. The Beatles hit with Hard Day's Night. Man, we would be riding down Sunset with my convertible 1959 Chevy Impala with the top back, and that song would come on, man. Do 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 down. Oh man, it's been a hard day's night, and I've been working. Oh man, that song was killer. I mean, that was the baddest song that ever lived at that time, man. I mean, you just couldn't get enough of hearing it. And I loved Elvis too, by the way. He had some really nice stuff. There was one song in particular, I'm gonna have to go on YouTube and find it so y'all can hear it, but it was called Don't. And the reason I liked it so much because he was so sincere with his vocals, and I mean very, very emotional. And that was one of the best songs I've ever heard Elvis do. So that was one of the ones that I really enjoyed hearing. But I loved Elvis. You know, I just don't like the fact that they wanted to crown him the king of rock and roll when we know who the real kings are. Because Elvis better get in line, because there was Little Richard, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, oh gosh, so many more. You know, I just can't even call it. Bo Diddley. They was rocking harder than Elvis or anybody else. Oh, and they also tried to give it to that Bill Haley and the Comets with that 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock. Get out of here. You know, I mean, just right before our eyes, you want to take things and claim them. You're just not right. You know, I mean, we know better. We know better. So you can live with that if you want, but we know better. I just want to say I have been so fortunate in my lifetime to be in a community where music was like the root. It was like a big tree that kept growing and growing and growing and producing fruit. I saw some of the best talent in my lifetime. As a kid, there was Etta, Johnny Guitar Watson, Miss Ruth Brown, Jesse Belvin. In our neighborhoods where we could hear them, Miss Lena Horne, we could hear her at South Park. Me and Barry White were friends. We used to hang out at South Park in the summertime, and we played, and we were in all kinds of activities there. But we loved sitting on Miss Lena's porch, hearing her sing. She lived in one of those troubadour homes on Park Front Walk. Beautiful lady, and she didn't mind letting us hear, just like Etta, when she used to let me sit on her porch with my little friend. She said, "Okay, as long as you be quiet, you can stay." And her and Richard Berry would be creating and making all these songs up. I remember one they had called "Work With Me, Henry," and they had another one called "Annie Had a Baby, Can't Work No More." I'm in this, you know, I'm hearing all this music. Growing up, and continually there was the Coasters, the Platters, the Flares, Hank Ballard and the Midnighters. Lived around the corner from the famous 5-4 ballroom where you could hear James Brown and the Famous Flames before he became James Brown and whoever else he was. But all these people were right in my community with all of this wonderful music, and music, like I said, was like the big oak tree just bearing fruit from every which way. You know, the penguins, you know, Earth Angel. Remember that song? Yeah, you know, those people was around us. Smoking Joe's Cafe from the Coasters. Or, oh gosh, I can't even think of one of the... It's Twilight Time by the Platters. And then, you know, like hearing... when I was be in my bed on the weekends, I could hear from the 5-4 ballroom Pretty Arthur Prysock singing. I could hear Mongo Santa Maria playing his percussions, Cal Jada, Latin music, just so much music. Just like I said, I was baptized in all this music. Been with me all my life. I would like to say that music is a gift from God. It was never meant to be bought and sold, but shared among the tribes. It is a universal language that is spoken all over the world. We communicate with beauty in music. But greed stepped in, and someone felt like they could make a whole lot of money from your gift. So that's what began to happen, and people were taken advantage of in so many ways. These opportunists who came along, and even at the cost of your life, if you had something of value, a song or some songs that you created, recorded for them, the next thing you know, they got all your recordings, but you're no longer in the picture, because all they wanted was you to just give everything over to them and they would take it to the bank. That still exists, and it's horrible to see this, you know, the greed of these people who feel like all you are is horn of plenty, to just keep giving and giving and giving, and never really being appreciated or respected for your gifts. Even being told that, what are you talking about? We did this. This is ours. Liars, you know, these people are liars and thieves, and they'll remain that way, but we know it. So what we do instead is just find joy in our hearts with just sharing it among our friends and sharing it among our loved ones. That's where we are today with music. The record companies are suffering because all they have is trash. The so-called hip-hop, rap has seemed to taken away a seat back now, but there's nothing to replace it. Genres are more or less drying up because of the lack of appreciation, really. Because naturally, music is something that we do, African American people. I'm speaking for mine now. We don't contrive anything. We don't go to the studio and beat ourselves up for hours or days to get one or two songs to make it to the studio or to the recording. It flows from us naturally, and there's nothing that anyone can do to stop it. The only thing is they close the door and won't let the truth in. But that's the way of some in the world, you know. We just have to look at it for what it is and just realize we don't need that. All we need to do is keep on loving among our people.
I know that I will never love again. I know that I will be my only friend. But if I could, I'd like for you to see the lovesick an image I've turned out to be. 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 Remember the things we used to do. Remember the nights I gave all my love to you. How did we part? How could it be? It's all because she found my diary. My diary. My diary. My diary. My diary. I sit at home and think of you each day. Never a card or word to me you say. We're so alike in each and every way. Even our birthday is on the same old day. 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 Remember the things that we used to do. Remember the nights I gave all my love to you. How did we part? How could it be? Why did my mother find my diary?